Let's talk about the Republican race. Rick Perry announces. We're actually recording this Thursday, so he announced, I guess, today. Yep. I don't know if you saw any of what he had to say, but it was extremely populist. He said, I'm gonna read a little bit because he may not have had a chance, and I don't know if people have caught up to it. The American people see a rigged game where insiders get rich and the middle class pays the tab. There's something wrong when the Dow is near record highs and business on Main Street can't get a loan. Since when did capitalism involve the elimination of risk for the biggest banks while regulations strangle our community banks? Capitalism is not corporatism. He goes on like this. He's wearing glasses now as a way, I guess, presumably to get away from, former Governor Oops. But is there any room for this guy this time around?
You always have to keep in mind also that what Rick Perry is running for essentially is the president of the Confederate States of America. If you go back through, he's a dyed-in-the-wool tenther. He doesn't believe the federal government has a legitimate role in anything except raising an army. He hasn't changed any of those opinions. So when he starts talking about how, the rich get richer and the middle class gets ground up, he's not in favor of any federal policies that might do anything about that. And we've seen how well things work in the states on that regard. So they're all gonna make a pass at this. They all should send Elizabeth Warren a check right now,
right? Because
she cleared she and a number of other people at Sherrod Brown have cleared the field for this. But the Republican Party has a real solution to that than they have one to health care.
It is interesting,
they're going to make the right neck noises and hope nobody notices.
It is interesting that they're talking about it, though, right?
And talking about it very directly. It's just that they have no policies that are going to be, that will remotely solve the problem. Deregulating the economy and devolving federal functions back to the states are not going to solve the income inequality problem. They're going to make them inevitably worse.
But do you think this? What do you think this does in terms of setting up the general election? Do you think look, because in some ways, literally, you have to break it down into sort of almost like brackets on the Republican side, because there's now I don't know how many.
There's 10 now.
There's 10. I think there's 11 officially.
Maybe there's 11 now, yeah.
But we still have Jeb is going to announce. We still have at least Bobby Jindal is going to announce.
Scott Walker hasn't announced yet.
Scott Walker hasn't announced yet. We still have at least 4 or 5 that I can tick off the top of my head. And Trump, I think, is going to announce. I think we could see even more, frankly, because, I've been saying this for a while. The downside diminishes every time someone new jumps into the race.
Oh, absolutely. I think, you're now looking at, if everybody gets in, you're looking at a situation where 14% or less than 20% could win the New Hampshire primary.
Right.
It wouldn't take that much.
And if you lose, you're not the guy who lost the New Hampshire primary, because they don't even have time to say your name because there's 15 of you who lost.
That's right. And of course, in the new world we live in of campaign finance, it really doesn't matter if you win or lose as long as you keep your sugar daddy.
Exactly. And that seems to be long-term. All right, so let's look at, I want to talk about some of the guys you wrote about this week. Scott Walker, it seems like there's 14 investigations around this guy at any given time, and nothing quite has landed yet.
Well, he's arranged Wisconsin politics, so it's hard to land a punch. But he's one of the governors who's going to run, despite the fact he's immensely unpopular in his own state. And really, the only one of those guys who possibly could run for president who has an unmistakably popular support in his own state is John Kasich.
Yes,
and Jersey's sick of Christie. Louisiana is very sick of Jindal.
I think Kasich,
Wisconsin has grown very sick of Scott Walker.
I think Kasich is actually if he is my sleeper fear, frankly, because he's a guy if he does get on the debate on the dais with all those other folks. I think he is the most well-spoken of all of them. Like, he is the most direct.
He's also the guy who took the Medicaid money.
Yep.
He tried to do the same thing Walker did with the unions, and he lost. And he, sort of sucked it up and accepted his loss and moved on from there. He's running, of course. His primary issue is the worst idea in American politics, which is the balanced budget amendment to the Constitution.
Right, but which
is just a terrible freaking idea.
It's a horrible idea, but it really resonates with those people. And people forget too that this guy was one of the original guys on Fox TV.
Sure, and he was, and they also have forgotten that he ran for president once before. Didn't get anywhere, but as a very young member of Congress, he ran for president.
I didn't even remember that.
Yeah, very briefly, but he did. And I think in one of the Clinton years, I think probably '96. But he's been he's extraordinarily good on television. He's got a record in Ohio that's nowhere near as dismal as the other governors.
Yeah, and
he's got a little bit of gravitas, which the other guys don't have.
It's interesting, and I don't know that he is declared yet. We also forgot about Christie declaring, although that seems to be, I'm convinced at this point that if Christie declares, it is specifically to negotiate something away with federal prosecutors. Just so he's going
to be sentenced to run for president.
Well, I think he says, like, look, guys, instead of actually trying to send me to jail, how about this? I quit my presidential campaign. I think it's just one more thing to give away, right?
That would be unprecedented, I think. That's another thing that's astonished me on Thursday when Rick Perry announced nobody mentioned the guy is indicted.
Oh, that's right.
I don't think anybody's ever run for president while under indictment.
That's impressive.
Walker and Christie are only under investigation. Perry's been indicted.
I wonder if
nobody mentioned it.
Do you think that's going to be like a pitch?
Well, I think it's a fairly salient fact, don't you?
It seems like it would be, but also, because he's bold enough to stand up to these pencil pushers.
I guess, but the man is under indictment. There's a mugshot.
He's smiling, though, at least in it. That is impressive. I totally forgot about that.
It's gone down the memory hole.
That's right. Because it's not been in any of the coverage. I've been reading about it, and he was just indicted 2 months ago?
It was not that long ago at all. I think it's about 6 or 8 weeks, yeah.
Wow. Well, I guess NBC did actually, there is a couple of stories you can see out there where it's like, this is like a funny, I don't know, it's like one of those Vox cards that they put out. Just sort of an explainer. He's also under indictment. I don't know. Give me your sense of what, we can anticipate. I'm curious as to what you think is going to happen next. Obviously August 15th, we get the first debate. So that's only 2 months away.
Yeah.
So this is actually becoming real now.
Yeah, no. And I think, you're going to have this flow. We now have the new ritual, which is that you announce that you're going to announce, and then you announce.
Well,
so you stay in the news cycle.
That's a function of, there was a story out, I don't know, it was earlier in this week that essentially not only is because we heard this a while back, the Federal Elections Commission, they're not even going to try and uphold federal election, but even the Department of Justice is saying, if we do anything, it's not going to be this cycle.
No, the money has overwhelmed almost all of the, it's blown through all the safety valves at this point.
It's crazy.
The FEC is understaffed. They've been undercut by the Supreme Court. The election reform has no place to stand right now, which is why I give, former Secretary Clinton a lot of credit for talking not only about Citizens United, but on Thursday going down to Texas and talking about voter suppression.
Right.
Because she didn't have to do that. And those are two very big issues.
They are big issues. I'm curious as to whether or not you think that ultimately, I don't
know that they bite. I don't know that
Right.
that they move the poll numbers at all.
No.
But if you don't fix it, the rest of the issues don't matter.
It's true. I mean, but it's clear that it's one thing to say it now, 2 years out or a year and a half out from the election. I mean, I don't know that it becomes policy. I mean, it's interesting to me. It seems like she is sort of right now. She's basically staying away from the press. I can't say as I blame her at this point, but and just coming out every couple of weeks with a proposal that is. I certainly appreciate as someone who I perceive to be left of where Clinton is. She's coming out with these proposals that I think are sort of aimed at, on some level, people like me, right, who are paying attention to
20 days of early voting.
Right,
that's a lot.
Standardized across the country. I mean,
and again, standardizing federal elections across the country, that's going to make. The 10th Amendment people crazy.
Well, and also what it does is it basically ensconces, because there is really no federal right to vote.
No, that's absolutely true. Scalia was right about that, by the way.
And this would at least provide some type of statutory basis, right?
Right.
For the vote.
And she's not just talking the talk. She's got her lawyers in court right now challenging some of these laws.
Yes, and I think
particularly the one in Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin, right? And obviously that's going to help her out, but it's also happens to.
It's also really good policy.
Good policy for democracy. What's fascinating to me too about this, about the sort of the complete, I guess, surrender on our campaign laws. Jeb Bush is like clearly violating. This whole thing, like it's an exploratory committee, like you're only supposed to spend, I think, like $5,000 or something like that to really determine whether or not you want to do it. And it seems quite clear that he's done a lot of exploring, and it's been a lot more expensive than $5,000.
Yeah, I mean, his explorations are costing as much as the Apollo program at this point.
What? Give me your sense of how this shakes down. Do you have any sense of? I mean, are you?
I don't. I mean, I think you saw it. I think that the people in charge with enforcing what few campaign finance laws we have left have given up. They don't have the time, the staff, or the money themselves to keep up.
I wonder what they're doing in those offices now.
I have no idea. I mean, I think they're basically keeping their heads down.
It's like I mean, this is. I mean, I don't want to be your desk editor, but I see a great George Plimpton style where you go and hang out with them for a couple of days and see what they're doing. I mean, once you've basically announced, like, hey, we're not going to do anything, which is what they've done. They've said, like, we can't do anything about it. Like, what do you do around the office at that point?
I don't know. Play Brick Breaker on your phone, I guess.
I mean, it just seems crazy. On one hand, like, I can appreciate at least they're being honest, right? And the head of this agency doesn't want to pretend like, the guards on duty, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But once the value of that announcement wears off, which I would count the number of people who saw that announcement in the tens, maybe across the country. There's not, the only other people who are paying attention are the people who are like, oh, I mean, I guess from her perspective, I think it's a she. She was like, those people who would pay attention to this notice and are running these campaigns already don't care.
Yeah. And I think that's tragic. I really do. I don't think there's anything funny about it.
It's crazy. It really is crazy to me. Give me your sense of who you think is going to come out. I mean, do you have any? I'm not going to say predictions because obviously it's ridiculous to predict anything at this point. But do you have a feeling of who might ultimately be? The beauty is you can say the top five, and you've already winnowed down by 75% at that point.
Well, that's a good point. I think Walker's going to make a really good run.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately Jeb will take over that position that Mitt Romney had the last time around as the Eye of Sauron and have so much money that sooner or later he concentrates on everybody and just obliterates them.
It's interesting.
I mean, if you want a really long distance prediction, I still think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I have a feeling the Koch brothers' money is going to make a big difference in Scott Walker's campaign.
Oh, I think he's going to have a really good run. I think he's going to go through the whole process because of that.
Vice President Walker, maybe.
Well, I guess it would, he would do. That would, theoretically, that would help Jeb, I guess, but I don't think it puts Wisconsin in play.
No, I think it's just a matter of like how much,
I mean, you may recall the last time around, Paul Ryan didn't even carry his home precinct.
I do remember that, and I believe me, I understand why Paul Ryan stayed in the Congress after watching what's going on here. I think he's probably it's probably one of the smartest things he's ever done.